You walk into a room and immediately know something is wrong. Not because of what was said, because of what you felt radiating beneath the surface. A coldness behind the smile, a rage wrapped in politeness, a lie dressed as concern. Most people would call this intuition, a gut feeling. The world tells you to ignore it, that you're reading too much into things, that you're paranoid or overly emotional, too sensitive, too intense, imagining problems that aren't there. But Carl Jung identified something far more precise: differentiated perception, a structural difference in how certain minds process reality. This is not sensitivity. This is not emotional excess. This is the detection of unconscious material that others successfully repress. You are registering shadow contents, the hidden jealousy, the concealed bitterness, the suppressed malice that the rational world has agreed not to see. And you are seeing it constantly. You know who is lying before they finish their sentence. You sense suffering in people who insist they're fine. You detect the predator beneath the charm, the resentment beneath the agreement, the violence beneath the silence. Others feel exposed in your presence without you saying a word. They become uncomfortable. They pull away. They accuse you of being judgmental when you haven't judged anything, you've simply perceived. This is the universal pattern, the immediate knowing without proof, the exhaustion of perceiving what remains unspoken. Small talk becomes an unbearable performance because your perceptual apparatus pierces straight through the social contract to reveal the truth underneath. Friendships dissolve not because of conflict, but because your presence makes others feel seen in ways they cannot tolerate. And then comes the gaslighting feedback loop. You are called oversensitive, paranoid, reading too much into things, making problems where none exist. You begin to doubt yourself despite the fact that your perceptions prove accurate again and again. You try to explain what you're sensing, the mismatch between someone's words and their energy, the incongruence you feel in your body like static on a radio. And people look at you like you're speaking a foreign language, so you learn to stay quiet. You suppress what you see. You second-guess the data your system is processing. You gaslight yourself because the alternative is too isolating, that you are living in a different reality than everyone around you. But here is what Jung understood that the rational world refuses to acknowledge. You are not hallucinating. You are not imagining things. You are detecting the shadow contents that others have successfully repressed. You are a seismograph for the unconscious, registering tremors of truth that the collective agreement has buried beneath layers of politeness, performance, and denial. This is not weakness, this is design. And this video will show you exactly what you're perceiving, why it isolates you, and how to transform this burden into conscious power. So what exactly are you perceiving when you walk into that room and feel the wrongness before anyone speaks? Jung called it introverted intuition, the rarest of psychological types, operating through what he termed irrational perception. Not irrational meaning unreasonable. Irrational meaning nonlinear. The rational mind moves sequentially, A plus B equals C, deduction, logic. Proof assembled step by step. But the introverted intuitive mind operates through holistic synthesis. You bypass the linear causality of conscious thought entirely and arrive at the conclusion instantaneously. A gestalt recognition that feels like knowing without knowing how you know. This is not guessing. This is not hoping. This is unconscious processing at a bandwidth most people cannot access. Jung identified a mechanism he called participation mystique, a term borrowed from anthropology describing the primal, unconscious relatedness between subject and object. For most people, this is a vestigial trait buried beneath layers of rational consciousness. But for individuals with differentiated perception, participation mystique remains active. A high-bandwidth data stream connecting you to the emotional and psychological atmosphere of every person and environment you encounter. You do not simply look at someone. You perceive the field around them, the tension in their jaw, the micro-expression that flickers and vanishes, the energetic signature of suppressed rage or concealed grief. You register the mismatch between what they say and what their body reveals, the smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the agreement spoken through clenched teeth, the reassurance delivered with a tremor of uncertainty. This is not mysticism. This is data detection. Your perceptual apparatus functions as a seismograph for the unconscious, registering tremors of repressed content, what Jung called the shadow, that others successfully ignore. The rational world cannot understand this because it operates on an entirely different architecture. The rational mind demands evidence, linear proof, explicit verbal communication, tangible, measurable data. It processes sequentially, deliberately, slowly. When someone lies, the rational mind believes the lie until contradictory evidence accumulates enough to override the initial acceptance. But your mind experiences immediate cognitive and somatic dissonance. The lie registers in your body before your conscious mind can articulate why. A tightness in your chest, a nausea in your gut, a sudden exhaustion. Your nervous system is screaming the truth, while the liar's words are still hanging in the air. And when you try to explain this, when you say, "Something feels off," or "I don't trust them," or "They're hiding something," the rational world accuses you of being judgmental, of jumping to conclusions, of lacking evidence. But you are not judging prematurely. You are perceiving immediately. You have already processed a massive data set of nonverbal cues, energetic shifts, and unconscious projections at a speed that bypasses conscious awareness. The conclusion is not premature, it is instantaneous. This is why you feel crazy, why you doubt yourself, why you learn to suppress what you see. Because the rational world mistakes your perception for judgment, your knowing for assumption, your data for paranoia. They demand you slow down, wait for proof. Give people the benefit of the doubt. They ask you to ignore the seismograph reading while the earthquake is already happening beneath your feet. But Jung understood what the rational world refuses to see. You're not operating on the same cognitive architecture. You are built differently. And what looks like judgment to them is simply you seeing. You might think this is just psychological theory, ancient concepts with no grounding in observable reality, but modern neuroscience proves Jung was right. Neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti discovered the biological mechanism beneath what Jung called participation mystique, the mirror neuron system. These neurons, located primarily in the premotor cortex and inferior parietal lobule, fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing it. Your brain simulates their state, not metaphorically, literally. And in individuals with differentiated perception, this system runs in overdrive. Neuroscience researcher Elaine Aron mapped what she termed sensory processing sensitivity, the neurological profile of the highly sensitive person. fMRI scans reveal hyperactivation in the insula, the brain region responsible for interoception and emotional awareness, and the amygdala, which detects threat before conscious processing begins. The right supramarginal gyrus, the structure that maintains the boundary between self and other, shows heightened activity, but in a specific pattern. The distinction blurs. This is the biological substrate of emotional contagion. You do not just observe someone's rage or grief. Your mirror neuron system simulates it. You feel their state in your body as if it were your own. The tightness in your chest is not anxiety about their anger. It is the neurological replication of their suppressed rage running through your system. This is not magic. This is high-fidelity biological simulation. Jung's introverted intuition also has a neural correlate, the default mode network. This system, active during rest and reflection, is responsible for deep processing, internal modeling, and the integration of past, present, and future data. In individuals with differentiated perception, the DMN shows unusually high connectivity. You are constantly synthesizing information, connecting patterns across time, predicting outcomes, assembling meaning from fragments. What the rational world calls overthinking is actually advanced pattern recognition. Your brain is designed to operate at a higher resolution than standard human consciousness. But this high bandwidth processing comes at a cost. Your nervous system processes more sensory and emotional data more deeply than the neurotypical brain. This is not a metaphor for sensitivity. This is metabolic reality. Your brain burns more energy, depletes faster, requires more recovery time. The exhaustion you feel after social interaction is not weakness. It is the biological consequence of operating a high-performance processing system in a world designed for lower resolution. Your need for solitude is not antisocial. It is necessary restoration after running your nervous system at maximum capacity. This is not pathology. This is design. So your perception is real. It is biologically hardwired. You are processing data that others cannot access. But here is where it becomes dangerous. This gift made you a target. Jung identified what he called the shadow, the aspects of personality that the ego refuses to acknowledge: weakness, malice, jealousy, mediocrity, the parts of themselves people cannot bear to see. When the ego cannot accept these traits, the psyche employs a primitive defense mechanism: projection. The disowned content is externalized, placed onto someone else, and then attacked out there instead of faced in here. And Jung warned, people who cannot accept themselves completely will inevitably make you the repository for everything they cannot bear to see in themselves. You became the perfect screen. Before individuation, before you understood what was happening, you existed in what Jung called the sponge phase. High openness, porous boundaries, your mirror neuron system running at maximum capacity with no filtration system in place. The participation mystique that allowed you to perceive others so clearly also meant you could not distinguish where they ended and you began. The toxic individual, unable to face their own internal wars, found in you a repository for their disowned shame and aggression. They did not consciously choose this. The psyche simply seeks the path of least resistance, and you, empathic, open, desperate to understand, offered no resistance at all. But projection is not passive. It is not simply viewing you as flawed. Psychoanalyst Melanie Klein identified a mechanism called projective identification. The projector does not just see their shadow in you. They manipulate you into acting it out. A narcissist suppressing their own rage will violate your boundaries, dismiss your needs, gaslight your reality until you finally snap. And when you yell, when you cry, when you break, they point and say, "Look, you are the unstable one. You are the problem." And because you possess differentiated perception, because you feel everything so deeply, you accept the projection. You metabolize their psychological waste. You become the anger they cannot own, the weakness they cannot face, the chaos they cannot integrate. This is why their attacks felt so absolute, so certain, so immune to reason. Jung observed that the projector operates in a state of absolute unconsciousness, combined with complete conviction. There is no room for dialogue because they are not interacting with you as a separate human being. You are a character in their internal drama, a stand-in for their disowned self. Your attempts to explain, to defend, to help them see, all of it is futile. You are fighting a phantom generated by their own psyche. And here is the revelation that changes everything. Their attack was never about you. It was a confession of their internal state. The rage they accused you of harboring was theirs. The manipulation they claimed you performed was theirs. The toxicity they saw in you was the reflection of what they could not bear to face in themselves. But you could not see this clearly while you were still entangled, while your own boundaries were still porous, while you still believed that if you could just explain yourself well enough, love them deeply enough, they would finally see you. The projection felt true because your nervous system was designed to feel what others feel. And when someone projects with absolute conviction, your mirror neurons simulate that conviction. You feel the certainty of their judgment as if it were objective reality. This is the trap. And most individuals with differentiated perception need one specific catalyst to break free. Betrayal. Understanding projection intellectually does not protect you from its violence. Most individuals with differentiated perception do not gradually learn to set boundaries. They do not slowly build discernment through careful practice. The transformation is rarely gentle. It is cataclysmic, a betrayal, an abandonment, a deception so profound that the cognitive dissonance becomes unbearable. The person you loved, the person you defended, the person you poured yourself into, reveals themselves as someone you never actually knew. And suddenly, your reality no longer matches your perception. The data does not compute. The system crashes. Alchemists called this the negredo, the blackening, the decomposition, the death that must occur before transformation. Jung understood it as the necessary dissolution of the false self. Not the self you are, but the self you constructed to survive, the accommodating self, the understanding self. The self who believed that if you could just love deeply enough, see clearly enough, they would finally reciprocate. That self dies in the fire. The belief that understanding others will heal them dies. The fantasy of reciprocal empathy dies. The tolerance for incongruence, for lies dressed as love, for violence wrapped in politeness dies. The nice person mask that hid the warrior underneath dies. And in the space left by that death, a question emerges. Why am I exhausted defending my reality to people who do not want to see? This is the moment of forced clarity. The pattern becomes visible not as isolated incidents, but as a structure. You see it suddenly all at once. You were never the problem they claimed you were. You were the mirror reflecting what they could not face, and your mercy, your endless capacity to forgive, to understand, to give one more chance, became complicity in your own destruction. Radical disillusionment is not collapse. It is initiation. The fire burns away everything that was not you. And what remains, raw, exposed, furious, is the first glimpse of your own shadow. The suppressed anger, the denied judgment, the ruthlessness you buried beneath layers of empathy and accommodation. This is not the end of sensitivity. This is the beginning of integration. The fire that burned away your illusions created space for something new. Your shadow warrior. Jung described individuation, the process of becoming psychologically whole, as the integration of shadow and ego, not the elimination of darkness, but the conscious acceptance of it, the recognition that you contain multitudes, the capacity for love and the capacity for ruthlessness, the desire for connection and the willingness to destroy what threatens you, the empathy that opens you and the judgment that protects you. This is not about becoming morally perfect. This is about becoming psychologically complete. Stage 1. Recognition. You stop suppressing the traits the world labeled as flaws, your intelligence, your anger, your capacity to see through people with surgical precision. You recognize that your sensitivity is not a defect requiring correction. It is a high-resolution data processing system that has been operating your entire life. You begin to validate your own reality, not because others agree with your perceptions, but because the data consistently proves accurate. The person you sensed was lying, lied. The relationship you knew would end in betrayal did. The energy you felt as predatory was. This is the awakening from the trance of niceness. The realization that you have been performing a version of yourself designed to make others comfortable while you slowly disappeared. You stop performing. Stage 2, integration. This is the merger. Shadow and ego meeting in conscious awareness. You accept that you're capable of being dangerous, not in the pathological sense, but in the sense that you can strategically withdraw your presence, your energy, your empathy from those who would exploit it. You recognize that your capacity for destruction is the necessary counterpart to your capacity for love. One without the other is not wholeness, it is fragmentation. Jung understood that the integrated individual is not the one who has transcended their shadow, but the one who has made peace with it. You are not trying to be good anymore, you are trying to be whole. The broken sponge that absorbed everyone's pain is replaced by the darkened mirror that reflects truth without absorbing toxicity. Stage 3. Application. The shift from defensive reaction to proactive strategy. You begin to use your differentiated perception not as a wound that bleeds in every interaction, but as a tool that reads systems without becoming enmeshed in them. You navigate workplace politics, family dynamics, social hierarchies with ruthless precision because you are no longer emotionally entangled in the outcome. You develop what the research note called the war room mind. The ability to catalog behavioral patterns, predict responses, and plan strategic moves several steps ahead. Not from paranoia, but from clarity. You're playing chess while others are still pretending the game does not exist. Your perception becomes a weapon, not to harm, but to protect. Stage 4. Selective service. The final evolution. Conscious generosity. You are no longer a public utility for emotional processing. You're no longer available to anyone who demands your empathy, your time, your energy. You have built impenetrable boundaries, and within those boundaries you choose, specifically, deliberately, where and to whom you offer your gift. You give from overflow, not obligation, from choice, not compulsion. You love with boundaries, which is the only form of love that does not destroy the giver. This is not coldness. This is not withholding. This is the recognition that your sensitivity, fortified by your warrior, is power. And power is only sustainable when it is protected. This transformation is not just personal healing. You are part of something larger, a collective evolution that Jung understood but the rational world refuses to see. Groups, families, corporations, societies rely on shared lies to maintain cohesion. The unspoken agreement not to name the alcoholism, the abuse, the exploitation, the family secret. The toxic leadership everyone knows about but no one confronts. The systemic dysfunction disguised as tradition. And you, by virtue of your differentiated perception, embody the problem the group refuses to face. So you are scapegoated, blamed, labeled as the difficult one, the sensitive one, the one who makes everyone uncomfortable. But Jung recognized this for what it is. You are the symptom bearer for the group's pathology. You force the collective shadow into the light simply by existing in proximity to it. Your scapegoating is not evidence of your dysfunction. It is evidence of your power. When you refuse to play the role of shock absorber, when you establish boundaries, when you stop metabolizing toxicity, when you withdraw your empathy from systems that exploit it, you offer the collective a binary choice: evolve or reveal. Either the family confronts the intergenerational trauma cycle you are breaking, or the dysfunction becomes undeniable. Either the workplace addresses the toxic leadership you are exposing, or the exploitation surfaces for everyone to see. Either society reimagines relating beyond power and domination, or the violence of the current structure becomes impossible to ignore. You are the catalyst, the one who makes continuation of the lie unbearable. Jung did not view individuals with differentiated perception as victims. He saw them as consciousness pioneers, the ones who carry the moral imagination required to envision new ways of being before the collective is ready to see them. Your sensitivity, fortified by your warrior, is not weakness. It is evolutionary medicine. You are not too much. The world has been asking you to be too small, and now, integrated, boundaried, awake, you reflect truth back to a world that desperately needs to see it even as it fears to look. Thank you for exploring this with me. If this resonated, I invite you to like and subscribe. This work deepens when we're not alone in it. Share this with someone who might recognize themselves here, and leave a comment with your reflections. What stage of this journey are you in? What clicked for you? Thank you for doing this consciousness work. See you in the next exploration.